Hi, welcome to DataBasic. For episode today, we are hosting Suvadip Chakraborty, the lead vice president of analytics and data science at HSBC. In this episode, we discuss everything from machine learning applications in banking to responsible AI, neobanks, fintechs, and the different challenges that banks face while leveraging AI. So stay tuned. Hi, Suvadip. Welcome to Data Basic, the Warwick Data Science Society podcast. We're very excited to host you today, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Data Science and AI in Banking. And before we start, if you could give us a little introduction about yourself and a little bit about your career trajectory.
So initially, I started my career in credit card analytics, especially focusing on customer acquisition for the US market. So that was during the subprime crisis days, and it was quite fun, to keep selling your credit card, but at the same time have a close look at the riskiness of the portfolio. And it was more of a like minimizing loss kind of analytics rather than profit maximizing. And then after that, I did a stint in the UK analytics team where I added up some more responsibilities, not only about cards, but also about all the other banking assets and liability products. Got involved in campaign management and propensity modeling. And then after that, got into a global role where the focus was more about developing an analytic solution for a particular market, that is a country, and then redeploy it to the other markets, make modifications, and then manage a wide range of stakeholders, not only from the world of analytics, but also from the business as well. So yeah, it was a good role and got a lot of exposure. Then did a stint in Hong Kong about making a solution for the front end um, relationship managers. And then after that, I moved from the retail banking side to the commercial banking side. And then there I joined a particular initiative which was focusing more on acquiring new customers by leveraging the connections of the existing customers analytically. So that was quite an interesting challenge. It was like a like small setup with uh, more of a like startup within the like bigger uh, company umbrella. And then after that, there were a couple of more roles, and now in my current role I'm managing a team comprising of multiple units, and then looking at the uh, data science aspects from the growth perspective, how we can grow our customer base, how we can acquire more customers, how we can ensure customer satisfaction. So yeah, pretty much this is what I have been doing.
That is an absolute, that's amazing experience. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. But you mentioned growth prospects and you mentioned using data science for decision making. So could you give us a couple of examples of where machine learning and AI specifically is used within banking or where you've seen it being used in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are many. Some of them, they are obvious ones. So whenever we think of it, the ones that comes at the top of our mind are, like a bank, it deals with payments and transactions. So it must have a robust fraud detection mechanism where it should constantly seek ML support to compete, not only compete, but be one step ahead of the ever innovating fraudsters. Then a bank has a wide spectrum of products to offer and a finite marketing budget. So it must use analytics to identify the prospects who are most likely to take up the products and services on offer. Also, bank lends money to its customers, so it must also have an advanced AI ML setup to detect those customers who are likely to default, that is, not repay back the loan. So it must also have a robust AI driven underwriting strategy. But like when I say about when I take these examples, they are only the tip of the iceberg. Because if you consider a moderately sized bank or even a big bank, then there are a lot of departments which functions together. So there are clients who can be offered superior customer experience through digital advisors. Then their queries and complaints, they can be routed properly and resolved faster through analyzing their sentiments through the voice calls, the calls that they make to the bank. Then when a customer visits a branch, then applying computer vision on their footfall patterns that can reduce queues, that can enhance their experience. Then customer digital experience, it can be made smoother by offering more personalized services based on their digital profiles. The frontline staff who travel to talk to their clients, so their routes can be optimized through AI. But I would say that what separates banks from others is that it needs to operate under the ground rules which are set by the regulations. So there are aspects related to the data sharing restrictions, privacy, biases, explainability. So yeah, that sets the ground within which we can operate.
So if you could tell us a little bit about regulatory compliance, and has it evolved over the years? Has it become more accepting towards applying data science techniques or AI in general, especially when we talk about the explainability of it?
Yeah,
That might be an issue. So if you could throw some light on that.
yeah, absolutely. Good question. So yeah, like these opinions henceforth are my personal views only, but what I feel is that the regulators and the banks, they should adapt to this changing technology because it is a difficult sector. AI is a like difficult thing to understand, and it is completely different from what we have seen previously, the pre-AI era, and it is also evolving quickly and unexpectedly. So on the one hand, it is now generally recognized that using AI in banking has a number of advantages and can increase efficiency by automating the internal banking procedures, increasing innovation, improving customer experience. But again, it has some disadvantages, as you rightly pointed out, such as the possibility of bias and lack of transparency in the decisions made by the algorithms, as well as positive uh, threats to, say, the financial stability, right? So leaving AI unregulated is not an option at all. But let's start discussing about the transparency of AI models. Many of these models, they have the tendency to be black boxes with little understanding of the reasoning behind the results which are getting produced. This is especially true for algorithms that use machine learning, of course, deep learning. So given this fact, a legal system that relies on transparency, the regulators, as per tradition, they are incompatible with the AI's nature. Now, if we look at the bias in AI's judgment, so the quality of AI algorithm decisions is influenced by the data quality, not only by the data quality, but also on how the problem is being framed and how much freedom we are giving it to operate. For instance, a credit underwriting algorithm could be given the objective of maximizing profits while ignoring the societal repercussions. So decisions made by the algorithm could become unjust, and it later learns that like favoring a particular group of market players over others in order to maximize returns. Now, thirdly, AI can also pose some financial stability risks. If machine learning algorithms, they are collectively adjusting and following a previously, say, outperforming trading or decision pattern in lending, then it can lead to some herding behavior. This has the potential to amplify the market shocks and to lead to concentration of risks. So these are all the pitfalls. But again, regulators, the positive news is that they have mostly understood the benefits of AI. So if we are talking about US, then the US Treasury Department, they released a report embracing the development of competitive technologies in the financial services sector. Then the Financial Stability Board, it publicly acknowledged the benefit of AI solutions for consumers as well as for banks. Then the Fed, it supports banks adopting AI because it is concerned that the non-regulated entities, they may derive an computer advantage by using AI. So with time, I guess that AI will be evolving in ways which are unknown today. And so regulations which are pretty much comprehensive today will also need to evolve into more dynamic AI regulation, which is flexible and adaptable to the changes that might occur in future. So this will keep banks at par with fintechs who currently do not have to adhere to the same compliance expectations as banks. So an interesting future lies ahead.
You mentioned fintechs as well because they're not as heavily regulated as banks. Do you see them maybe using AI or machine learning at a much larger scale, or be more accepting as compared to banks? So do you see them outsmarting banks at any point for the specific service that they offer?
Understood. I understand. I completely acknowledge that these fintechs, they have grown significantly in the last 3 years, leveraging technology as well as due to the change in the customer demand and comparatively leaner regulations. And they are doing amazing work in retail space, across lending, across payments. And there is no doubt that fintechs are shaking up the financial services industry in big ways. And they have certain advantages that allow them to be more innovative and deliver services to customers more quickly and more cost effective uh, manner than traditional banking institutions. And I can completely understand your question that, like because of these, it has left people wondering what if it means the end of the traditional banking. But, I was digging this up that fintech, if we look at this term, so this is not a new term which has been coined, but it was coined way back in the 1980s. So yeah, like fintechs were there since 1980s, and it's been quite some time that fintechs and the banks, they have been coexisting. So I personally believe that there are reasons for them to continue to coexist. Um, because fintech companies replacing traditional bank is extremely unlikely for a couple of reasons. The first one is that the customers, they still trust banks more than new businesses to handle their money appropriately. So fintech firms, they will need to be patient to they need some more time to gain customers trust over time, because banks have decades of trust developed via the customer client relationships. Fintechs, on the other hand, they do one thing at a time, and that one thing, they do it very well. They do it extremely well. Now if a customer is looking for that very one specific thing, then fintechs can be the preferred place to go. But when a customer bank walks up to a bank branch to talk about their dreams, maybe dreams of securing their child's future, or about, so in the recent trends, we are seeing that the fintechs and the banks, they can come together through to form joint ventures. Like banks, they acquire technology and insights through mergers, the purchase of startup companies, mentorship programs. Fintech businesses, they increase their customer base and market reach through these agreements. So right now, with these type of strategies, both banks as well as fintech startups, they benefit from the cooperation as compared to the market competition. So these are some of the reasons to believe that banks and fintechs, they will coexist, they will be together, and at the end of the day will provide better products, services, and superior customer experience.
An example to explain that could be PayPal, because we've seen that PayPal offers a
Yeah.
lot lower rates as compared to traditional banks, and we've seen banks tie up or leverage PayPal's services.
Absolutely. So PayPal is one such example where they are doing one thing at a time and they are doing it extremely well. So instead of going into a direct competition, so if we are following the collaborative model, which many of the banks are doing currently, so yeah, it will be a win-win situation for both.
So, Shubhadev, if you could throw some light on the limitations of AI, especially specifically in banking, because we see that even though we have access to data in banks, the customer data is very, I mean, it's contained to the bank itself, so we don't really know much about what the customers are doing outside of the bank. And is there a way to get that information? So, are we using, say, third-party data, or is open banking leading to banks being able to get more information about a single customer and make better decisions? So, your thoughts on that?
Open banking is another great example in this direction. And again, as I was telling you, that it is giving a lot of benefits to the customers, because customers, they are now having more choice and convenience, because a customer can access a wide range of financial products and services from different providers through a single platform. And there are examples like they can use the budgeting tools, they can use savings accounts, loans, insurance from a single platform across multiple banks. And then there is more personalization and a innovation component there. That is, the customers, they can get tailored and customized recommendations and offers based on their financial needs, preferences, benefit from the new and innovative solutions that leverage data and technology. And then the one that I was mentioning about the competition leads to lower costs. So they can now easily compare and switch between different providers. And that switch is not only easy but also transparent. And so they can enjoy lower fees and better rates due to this increased competition. But again, as you touched upon that, yeah, there are definitely not limitations, but there are some concern areas as well. Say, for example, the data security and privacy is a concern, and it is a concern for quite some time, because the customers, they have to share their financial and personal data with third-party providers, which may expose them to data breaches, frauds, misuse of their information. And then there is the issue related to regulatory compliance and oversight. So the third party providers, they have to comply with various regulations and standards, and these regulations and standards, because they are evolving, so they vary across jurisdictions. And so, like, customer protection and anti-money laundering and data protection aspects needs to be very carefully assessed. And then, of course, like, there is also a factor of customer education and trust here. That is, customers themselves, they have to understand the benefits and the risks of, say, open banking, and then trust these third party providers with their data and transactions. So, like, overall, open banking is becoming a global trend, and it is no doubt reshaping the banking industry. And then there are regulations also which are coming in force. Say, for example, like Europe, there is this PSD2, and then in UK there is the open banking standard. In Australia there is the CDR. So they are already in place. They are also getting evolved over time. So this is an interesting space to be in.
No, that really makes sense. So thank you so much for sharing that, Shubhadeep. But so coming to the current state of affairs, so we see that large language models are being talked about or leveraged extensively across companies, industries. There's a lot of anticipation, I feel, as well as people feeling threatened about their future job security and all of that happening. So just talking about large language models, if you could tell us what they are, and and do you see banks or companies in general leveraging them, and just your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, the entire world, it has pretty much shaken up with the release of ChatGPT 3 last year, November 30th, I guess. So for AI, it was just like the iPhone moment. Ever since, like, in the last few weeks, we have seen the dozens of large language models releasing every week. So no doubt that we are witnessing a great time. And the companies, they are moving very fast. So they have already started moving extremely fast. They have already started rolling out applications. Governments, they have been taking notice. Like in Japan, they have suggested to use it for administrative purposes. Italy decided to ban it. So everybody has been shaken up, and there is no way that large language models, they can be ignored now. But in terms of banks adopting large language models, okay, talking about large language models, the first thing that generally pops up in our mind is ChatGPT 3 or ChatGPT 4, and opening it up for our customers so that they can use chatbots to interact with banks, um, related to their products and service inquiries, or resolve their complaints, or do their financial transactions over the chat interface. Now, I believe that this part is not going to happen too soon, as the technology is yet to be tested manifold before we reach that stage. The reason I believe so, or I say so, is not because of I don't have any. like confidence in any particular large language model, or they are not good enough, but more from a fundamental perspective of what AI can or cannot do. So AI can be super smart, but then there are cases where it can be dumb. It can make mistakes which no human will do. I heard about this cow on the beach example where the current AI, they can recognize objects very well. So it will almost always accurately identify a cow if you show it a photo of a cow on a grass field. However, if you show it a photo of a cow on a beach, which is unlikely, right? We are unlikely to see a cow on a beach. And we have seen that, yeah, like even the large language models and even the best of AI, they have not been able to identify the cow. But humans will never do that. Humans will always identify a cow irrespective of where it is. So it's because we do not see objects the same way in which AI sees it. AI sees it through an array of pixels and their RGB values. And this is not something new. So this is what we have seen from examples of self-driving cars where AI can get confused with traffic cones. AI can view the moon as a yellow traffic light, and a few home printed stickers which are invisible to the human eye, they can confuse the AI and it can cause accidents. So in these type of areas where there can be loss of life, or in case of banks, loss of one's life savings, so these areas AI need to be more and more foolproof before giving it to the hand of the end users. But nevertheless, that does not mean that the large language models, they cannot be used right away in the banks. It can definitely be used to explore in areas of say productivity, efficiency, innovation. So say for example, it can be used as a coding assistant for the programmers to assist in their coding and debugging. It can be used to draft emails. It can be used for time management, creating presentations, managing meetings, and so on. So these are the things that can add a lot of value to all organizations, including banks.
Think that we are quite excited now, and it needs some time to maybe buzz off a bit and leave us some space to think about the real applications and where this is going on. It's interesting as well because I was reading a paper. I think it was this morning or yesterday. I can't remember exactly. But they were saying that these big platforms like Reddit and Stack Overflow, they've decided that because the data on their platform, it was open through you would just call it through an API and you'd have access
Yeah,
to a lot of data, and that's how actually OpenAI and Google trained their BART and ChatGPT things. They use that data as well, besides other things like Wikipedia pages or books. Um, but because these are platforms and then these are real uh, things that are happening right now, and they're still entertained and in a way already. um, they've decided that they won't let it be open anymore, and they'll start charging it because they
yeah,
realize how powerful their platform is for these language models, and how much value and how much of randomness there. Like you could find the most intellectual things sometimes in some Reddit threads, but then you could also find the weirdest and maybe uh, dumbest, let's call them, ideas that you could ever think about on there. So it's clearly a variety of information, and I think that the one that's actually making a lot of headlines is Twitter. Obviously, Twitter
yeah,
nowadays, with Elon on his back, on its back, because I think they're charging $42,000 for access to their API. So that's quite a big sum for, let's say, a a small startup or somebody that's just starting. Uh,
yeah.
but probably compared to those big tech, it's just nothing. But yeah, it's interesting to see where it's going and where it's headed, as you said as well, because we need to take some changes. We need to make some changes. We need to take some steps in order to regulate some stuff or to better understand how to think about the human aspect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is sense in charging for the data by, say, platforms like Reddit or Coda, because yeah, like, you know, ChatGPT is no longer like free, OpenAI is no longer free. So if they are building a commercial proposition using raw materials which are scraped from these sources, so yeah, they ought to charge it. But the funny thing here is that, like, there are ample examples where people will now ask questions on Coda and Reddit, and then some others will be posting answers which are given by ChatGPT or Bing Chat. So it is getting funnier because, like, these platforms which were answered previously by only humans, now there are many answers which are actually posted by AI. And now in the next, maybe in ChatGPT 5, if it releases, so they will be using the data which is partly generated by humans and partly by their own predecessors. So that will be even funnier.
Yeah, that's true. It will be a loop sometimes, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
strange loop.
Maybe they need to yeah, find some ways to. I know it's pretty hard to differentiate them when it comes to like to see
Yeah,
who wrote that thing. Like, was it a machine or was it a human? It's quite hard nowadays, but maybe once they sort it out, or maybe they would never sort it out. I'm not sure where it's going. But yeah, it might become a loop in there, like AI is trained by other AIs. I mean, it's actually a thing. It's called adversarial AI, adversarial machine or something like that,
yeah,
when two agents are playing against each other and they're becoming better. Uh, but yeah, coming back to banks, I know we discussed a bit about PayPal, some other big banks, but I wanted to bring in the discussion also Monzo, Revolut, and others like this, and because they're not only taking care of the transactions behind it. That I know PayPal is a good way to send money across. You can easily pay some of your invoices or other stuff through companies. Uh, but they now Monzo and Revolut and others are offering a credit card as well, a debit card, and things are, from my perspective, are mixing a bit more now with these propositions. Like, how do you see them, and what do you think about these new ways of doing uh, fintechs?
they are quite amazing the way that they have been doing. Say, for example, Revolut, the example that you took, and you know, like the other neobanks, there are a bunch of them, and all of them they are doing quite well now. So from that perspective, so they are maintaining a healthy balance of the banking features as well as the technology, and the resulting blend that is getting very popular with the customers, no doubt on that. And the future for banking, it seems quite great with this type of neobanks, as well as the kind of data that I was seeing is that in the last like 10 years, so the number of physical banks with branches, so they have become much fewer in number, and then there are new banks who are setting up um, physical branches. They are also being very few, but at the same time there are a lot of banks which are only going through the virtual route, and they are getting quite popular. And because of the advances in AI, as well as a lot of things which were previously unheard of can be done offline, are being done online. So say, for example, like last week, I heard that there is somebody who has come up with the concept of opening a bank account directly by taking a selfie. So no other documents required for the time being. It's only the selfie as from which the biometrics will also be verified and one can have a functional bank account. So these are some of the concept prototypes which I think is going to be the trend in future. There are of course like other trends like the digital currency, which is now getting popular. Um, but then what I am more even keen to understand is that okay, like these banks, maybe the traditional banks or the neo banks, be it physical or virtual, so they will evolve over time. But some of the things which are happening great are in the space of personalized banking, because a bank can have million of customers, but each customer is different. Their preferred mode of communication with the bank, their banking needs, their reward redemption preference, their risk affinity, everything can be very different. So these hyper personalization offering, which many of the banks they are working on, or the neo banks they are promising, so that sounds like a very interesting future. The other thing which I'm personally quite um, passionate about, interested about, is about the green financing and the sustainable banking, which are emerging as important concepts in the world of finance. So they represent new approaches in financing that is focused on sustainability as well as environmental responsibility. Now, green financing or sustainable banking, they are important because they can help address some of the most pressing issues which are currently being faced by the planet. So climate change, pollution, resource depletion, they are just a few of the challenges. And when I see that okay, banks are the front runners, they are committing big sums of money in this direction. So that actually makes us proud that yeah, we are doing something good for the not only the present but also for the future generation, which will comprise of future customers as well.
Agreed. Yeah, I think climate risk modeling is another avenue that that has recently come up, and it's prevalent for a lot of banks as well as fintechs as well. So thank you so much for sharing, your thoughts on all of this, Shubhadeep. We wanted to understand. So for us, like our audience, specifically the students, if they want to explore banking and data science and AI, specifically in banking, if you could give us some suggestions or inputs on maybe how those students could get started.
So I would say that like there are two approaches, because what we have seen is that like there are people who are already familiar with the banking domain, so they have expanded their horizon and they have embraced data analytics, data science. And we have seen the other cases as well, that the analytics professionals, like they have decided that yeah, like they are passionate about banking and financial, and so they will narrow their opportunity and focus more and go in depth in banking analytics. It would be good to understand some of the basics, maybe like what are the banking products, services in the say retail space, in the commercial space, how risks are managed, how regulators they interact with banks, and then how banks make money, how um, how the banks have performed, like what are the major crises which banks faced in the like recent history, as well as like in the last century. And that would be a good starting point, because I understand that yeah, bank they have like some other complexities which are not there in the other domains, but they are not extremely difficult to pick up. So anybody who is interested, they can pick them up.
Also, I think before we let you go, if you could tell us a little bit about your book, I think it's a wonderful mix of data science and fiction. So if you could tell us a little about that as well.
Yep. So that is what I dared, but it was only during the COVID days, when I saved a lot. I had nothing better to do, and also I was trapped at home, so I was thinking of doing something. And then I thought that okay, like let's give it a try. It was like first time that I'm not writing a book. Not only the first time I'm writing a book, but first time I'm writing something. All I have written so far are maybe like maybe one paragraph or 2 pages long. And then I started like one chapter after another, and then after that realized that wow, it is probably getting the shape of a book. This is getting quite interesting. So then even I got more interested, and then after I completed the first manuscript, then it was a completely different story that I had no idea how to approach a publisher. So that part was again like field of learning. It was a completely new learning. But again, the thing here is that what I try to do is to create a genre called data science fiction. I know like it sounds like science fiction, but I added data before it so that we can call it a data science plus fiction, which is data science fiction. And like I try to weave a story of young people in the backdrop of the data science industry. So I saw that personally that there are a lot of books on data science techniques, but then none of them they are focusing on the life of the data scientists. And then there is so much of curiosity around it that okay, what is the typical day uh, in the life of a data scientist looks like. So I decided to address that gap, and that too in an entertaining way. So I decided to compose a fiction. So it's an interesting read. So if you get a chance, then please give it a read. I'll be extremely happy if I can get some feedback.
Definitely, it sounds incredible. And definitely, I think Alexandra and I both will try and find a copy and read it.
Amazing.
So Alexandra, did you have any questions?
Um, None that I can think right now. I was impressed, and I was listening to the fact that you wrote the book, and that's quite impressive to start with, and to try to bring more people in the field of data science, because that's somehow our goal as well as the data science society, to make it more accessible for everybody, and for us to spread the knowledge of how impactful it is becoming, and how important it is to be at least data science literate, and to understand how to use it, not only from the perspective of a coder, because we don't bring only people from a coding background, but we also have people from the I don't know, social sciences, economics, and businesses, and other stuff that is already impacted by the data science. And yeah, I'm glad that more of us are there to support this, and to make it more accessible and more understandable for everybody to get into the data science world. And thanks for that. I really appreciate it. In terms of questions, I think I'm all right. Thanks for asking, Ria. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just adding to what Alexandra said, I think your book is a wonderful step forward in making data science more relatable for people who don't belong to the industry or don't have any much context about it, or think that it's something that maybe they will not understand, or it's too mathematical. So I think it's a wonderful step forward. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of examples there, where people reached out to me saying that, my they are into data science, but they said that my parents are completely unaware of what I do, and this is the book that I asked my father to read, and then for the first time he came back and said that okay, now I understand the kind of work that you do. So that is quite good, like for non-data science people it will be a good glimpse of the world in of data science, and for those who are in the data science world it will be a fun read as well.
Exactly.
So, Shivadip, I think thank you so much for taking this time out to be part of our podcast, especially on a Saturday. I think it's a Saturday evening for you. So, thank you so much for taking the time out. And everything that you shared has been very insightful. And especially for our audience, I think they'll have a lot of takeaways from everything that you shared. And hopefully, they will consider banking, analytics and banking, or, we've hopefully made data science a little more simpler for them. So, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. It was absolutely
I'm
lovely
truly
having you.
humbled. Thank you for calling me over. It was such a delight. Yeah, I can't think of any better way of spending my Saturday afternoon.
Oh wow, you're so
Yeah.
kind. You're so kind on this point, and thanks a lot for joining us today.